Welcome, everyone. On today's show, we're all about meeting indoor expectations with outdoor realities. My name is Sylvia Hooks, and you're watching TechWise TV.
Is that what I think it is?
The new 1550 outdoor access points?
That's what I was hoping.
Heck yeah.
So sweet.
Setting them up, brother. Get them ready to go.
I was hoping they were going to get some of these units out to us.
Yeah.
Remember the old days? It was hard to get equipment, you know?
Boy, I tell you, man, and these being brand new and stuff, I'm certainly grateful we got them. These are fantastic APs that really do offer a lot of features to, outdoor users and implementers and stuff out there that, honestly, there's nothing else on the market that even touches them.
Well, and that's, I think, where we need to go. So the first question is, in terms of setting up this particular show, wireless, we've covered that. Good stuff.
Been there, done that, yeah.
Unique stuff, and all that's good and fine. But it's obviously the outdoor component that makes this unique.
Yeah.
So what type of questions are important to you, in terms of what we need to make sure gets answered across the next hour?
Well, Rob, one of the things that I think is really important to look at an outdoor access point is that, isn't honest to goodness an outdoor access point? I mean, did I just take, I don't want an AP that looks like I took an indoor AP and put an outdoor enclosure on it, and I see a lot of crap on the market today, and it really, I'll be honest with you, it really torques my chaps when I see that stuff because it doesn't give me the features and benefits I need. Now, if a company is learning from what it did indoors and applying that outdoors, like let's say stuff like clean air, if I can move clean air in a very dirty environment like being outdoors, that's pretty cool. And we've done that. We've added clean air in here, and that would almost be just enough to make me say, this is the AP I want. But I also need some security, I need some backhaul, I need some offloading. There's a few other features that I need in an outdoor AP to really...
Do you support cleaner?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the whole 1550 line supports clean air.
That's a marketing name that keeps on giving, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Start to outdoor wireless access points and stuff like this. Okay, and then you mentioned, did you cover security?
Yeah, so security, yeah, definitely. It's all the stuff we learned on the indoors, but also what are we learning from the outdoor side of the house? How am I securing the backhaul? Is it differently? Yeah. Am I supporting the whole 802.1N package, the whole standard that actually allows me to do this? A lot of stuff out there says I support N, and when you look at it, they just only support it to the PHY. They don't support like I. That type of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
If you support the PHY, sometimes you don't support I.
But we got to make sure it's all there.
That's right.
Absolutely. And obviously, from a services perspective, these things are performing duties that really has never been asked of other access points. Everything from high-speed roaming to mixed services to some that need to be secure and always available to others that are nice to have, but and everything in between, correct?
Yeah, look at the ubiquity of wireless right now. We've got this access point here that is truly, honest to goodness, a genuine outdoor access point with external antenna capabilities. Then I've got them with cable modems. I even got access points allowing me to put them in hazardous areas where I'm dealing with explosive, chemicals, mining shafts.
So you can pick your model and so kind of pick your weapon for the right battle.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, I think
it's not one size fits all. It's what fits in your environment, and that's some of the pieces we need to dig into as well.
All right, I think we got it. Let's do this. So, guys, don't touch that browser, because coming up, Navdeep joins Jimmy Ray to get questions answered around this incredible new 1550 series. Also, best practices for wireless security, but this is in the great outdoors. Viewer mail in our feedback loop segment. This one explores switch lobe antennas. Stay for that one. And, of course, a masterclass on antenna engineering. Antennas, touchy subject for some, but it may not be as hard as you think it is. But first, we extend a warm welcome to Ray Smets, Vice President and GM for Cisco's Wireless Networking Business Unit. He and Sylvia are going to lay out everything we need to know about this market, these devices, and why you need to be looking at them.
Ray, you were just in Barcelona to do a big announcement at Mobile World Congress. I understand that was really a service provider-focused announcement with also some relevance to enterprise, but let's start with service provider. What did we announce and why was it important for these customers?
Wow. That Mobile World Congress was an amazing event, and yes, it is focused entirely on service providers, so it is the Olympics of the service provider community. We did something that no other supplier did. We announced a service provider class Wi-Fi infrastructure solution that was music to our service provider customers' ears. So we made a set of announcements. We announced our new outdoor access point, the 1550 outdoor access point, which is a very very important solution for service providers. But it also includes Clean Air, our industry-leading solution to actually do spectrum analysis and high-resolution RF analysis in the outdoor space. Additionally, we also announced, along with Clean Air and the Outdoor Access Point, our next-generation hotspot solution, and Cisco's leading the way with service provider Wi-Fi infrastructure solutions that, once again, will change the game in terms of how service providers will deploy Wi-Fi.
Well, Wi-Fi's been around for a long time, so what's different now that's interesting to service providers?
Well, think about what's happening. 2 years ago, when we entered this space over at Mobile World Congress, we were just curiosity, if you will. The 3G macro networks were doing just fine, but then all these smartphones began to arrive, and there was a whole lot more stress on the macro data networks. So Wi-Fi today is really the strategic solution to offload 3G macro networks for data overload. So Wi-Fi is in the right place at the right time to be applicable to a service provider. So what's really changed is lots more smartphones, a lot more data demand, a whole lot more bandwidth demand and video demand on macro networks, and the service providers absolutely must offload that traffic to something else, and Wi-Fi is the solution of choice.
And they need 11N for that.
11N is a great solution because it provides higher bandwidth per access point, which is something that service providers absolutely need right now. Right now, they need a solution that they can count on. Because think about it, if they're offloading data from the macro network onto the Wi-Fi network, and the Wi-Fi network can't handle the load, it goes right back to the 3G infrastructure, and the 3G network will go down. So Wi-Fi really is a way to provide service assurance across multiple networks. It really is a great solution for service providers.
Okay, so I understand the service provider angle. What's the angle for enterprises? Why would they be interested in outdoor wireless?
So, well, these solutions work seamlessly across the entire unified wireless infrastructure that Cisco provides. So when you think about an enterprise isn't just an indoor business anymore. A lot of enterprises are outdoors. When you think about hospitals that are campus-oriented or higher education, which is a campus environment, the IT organization is deploying Wi-Fi, and it's going to have to deploy it in all four corners of that enterprise or that campus environment. So it's not just indoor. It's got to be indoor and outdoor.
Same experience for both.
So the idea is it's one infrastructure, you manage it as one single infrastructure, and it's a completely seamless experience for customers as they move from indoors to outdoors.
So that sounds like a borderless network to me.
That is a borderless network. In fact, it is really one of the key examples of what borderless networks is all about.
Okay. So that makes a lot of sense. You want to provide the same service inside and outside, whether you're an enterprise or a service provider. What's the significance of Clean Air in this outdoor access point?
Well, first of all, the significance of Clean Air is that it's an industry-leading solution that provides unprecedented resolution of interference within the RF environment. Mm-hmm. So this access point has a chip in it that is constantly scanning the environment. It's looking for interference. It's looking for what's happening. And what's happening in that environment is very important because a service provider and the enterprise is trying to assure a quality of experience to their end users. If there's interference detected, it classifies it, it will isolate it, it will actually locate it, and then it'll actually automatically optimize the network to try to mitigate that interference so that the end user detects no change whatsoever. They just have great Wi-Fi infrastructure service, and the IT guys are happy.
Right, and then you pointed out, I mean, that we've talked about that in terms of indoor experience. There's no reason why they wouldn't expect exactly the same kind of service outdoor as well. So if you're sitting in a coffee shop outside, or if you're in a retail environment where you're outside, you want to have the same experience.
Well, as more and more of these smartphones end up in everybody's pockets, and the dependency on access to data becomes more and more important to do business and also for personal use, the expectation of service continues to go up. I think you probably have a very high expectation of your service provider and your enterprise to provide really great Wi-Fi service.
I have a low expectation.
Well, it's going to go up, I'm sure. It's only a matter of time.
Hopeful.
And these solutions here give enterprises and service providers, for the first time in the industry, the ability to provide a service they can back with their brand. When you think about a service provider, the key word is service. When service fails, heads roll in a service provider. I know this. I'm from a service provider. This is a solution for the first time in the service provider industry that the service provider actually can put their brand behind and say, hey, I'm providing the best quality Wi-Fi infrastructure service to my customers.
Okay, so let's talk about that and the link to the customer, because I think what we're talking about now is we're starting to talk about the next-gen hotspot that you introduced. What's that about?
That was a major part of our announcement. So everybody was excited about these products and looking at the Clean Air solution because it goes right to the heart of what service providers are trying to solve. But the next generation hotspot solution was a real surprise announcement by Cisco because we're leading the industry in this area. So think about the old-fashioned experience of getting on Wi-Fi. You had to kind of find the SSID, select the SSID, and then go to a web page and enter in your username and password. And unfortunately, the industry didn't do a very good job creating a good experience for the average consumer.
Yeah.
Very hard to do. Can you do that?
You know what? You have to try a couple things to get it to work.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to restart your browser. Sometimes you have to do, it's a little bit hard.
So customer experience is important here. So with next generation hotspot, what we're doing is we're leveraging the ability to do all sorts of different kinds of authentication methods to put the control back into the hands of the service provider so they can manage the seamless authentication of users that are friendly and have access to their infrastructure. So we take the control out of the hands of the customer and they just automatically authenticate. What this does is it opens up a brand new area for service providers to provide roaming agreements across multiple service providers so that that whole concept, that experience that you get on your 3G phone when you walk off the plane in any country or any state and you turn it on and you can make phone calls and you just don't have to worry about how to make it work. We're creating the infrastructure to make that happen too.
Okay, so tie this back to enterprises for me. How are they going to be using this technology?
Well, think about an enterprise. An enterprise also wants to have a guest infrastructure, the ability to authenticate users onto their infrastructure in a more controlled fashion. Because usually those who operate networks want to know who's on their network and where they're at and what's their context of where they're currently located and what are they currently doing. So with next generation hotspot, we're building an infrastructure across our entire 802.11n product line that will allow our enterprise customers and service provider customers to take control back in terms of how they wish to authenticate users onto their network. It could be users that they want to authenticate and users that they may or may not know about that they want to add in as a guest.
So what's a use case? Give me a real-world example of how this would be used.
So a great example might be you have, say, a visiting delegation to a university. Mm-hmm. And the delegation needs Wi-Fi access because everybody's got either a laptop or a smartphone in their pocket. In the old days, they would have to go to somebody in the enterprise to figure out, can I get authorized access to your hotspot? What's the login? What's the password? In the new world, it can be granted maybe through a different set of credentials provided over the next generation hotspot solution. We're going to allow for eSIM authentication. That's going to be SIM-based authentication, very much like the cellular infrastructure works. So the ability for a service provider to grant access to a Wi-Fi network to a customer that they know will be so much easier because it'll be the same authentication infrastructure that's already in place. So think about it. When you walk into an environment, you may or may not know if you belong, but the network will know whether you belong, and it'll automatically connect you.
I think the example we keep coming up with, too, is in the retail environment. How will retailers be using this to gain more intimacy with their customers?
Oh, gosh. This is a huge opportunity for retailers. Another use case might be if you walked into a fast food restaurant. And there's a big long line. And I walked into a restaurant like that in one of the airports in Europe, and I couldn't believe how many people were standing in line at that American fast food chain. And I wasn't going to stand in that line. But if I were connected to the hotspot for that fast food restaurant, I could be presented with the ordering menu because the network knows where I'm at. It knows that I should be granted access to it, and it pushes an application to my handset that allows me to place an order, and I can even pay. So the concept of being aware of the surroundings is very important.
Yeah.
And that's a very unique differentiator to the way Cisco's approaching this as a leader in this space, is not only are we going to solve the authentication opportunity, we're also going to solve how do customers get more intimate with the environment that they're currently in.
It's great for retailers, also great for customers who really want to have a better experience when they are dealing with these kind of fast-paced world.
So many customers want to know they want the place they do business to know who they are. They're great customers. They go there every week. If you think about a large home improvement warehouse retailer, there's a lot of repeat customer visits. People that shop there shop frequently. And top customers are important to that retail customer. So wouldn't it be great to give the retailer the ability to automatically identify users as they're walking through the door and then push applications, information, or whatever the case may be to them so that the experience is more customized for that high-end user? Well,
Ray, it sounds like a fantastic new opportunity for lots of different businesses, and I thank you so much for coming in to talk about it.
It's great. It's really great to be here. Thanks a lot.
It's not hard to make a pretty good list of distinctions for where Cisco has out-innovated in the wireless space. But at the top of my list, it's clean air. A very real technology that also benefits from a great marketing name. How often do those two things match up? We've covered clean air in depth on a number of different shows, from our Aruba reality show to numerous visits with Jim Florek, our favorite go-to geek for anything around spectrum analysis. But I wanted to break down a few fundamentals and make sure we're all starting from the same place. So even though the market has seen the value of a controller-based wireless architecture where lightweight access points are scaled throughout a coverage area, many people are still flying blind and they're trying to track by this walking around method of following interference, noise, and security issues. And well, you know what? By their very nature, they're sporadic. They're hard to track and they're hard to then fix. The only way to be effective here is to do real-time analysis, to have an always-on monitoring solution that can simultaneously serve clients. Now, historically, this would be done by setting up a parallel monitoring network if you could even afford that luxury. Cisco Clean Air, however, is using what we call a centralized infrastructure model. It is it's a self-healing, spectrum-aware system that can automatically remediate interference because spectral sensing and analysis, they're integrated right into the network. Now, there's marketing claims from other companies that sound like they do this, but even just a little bit of digging is going to show you the reality behind how many additional access points have to be added and dedicated just to monitoring to do what you want to do. And that's just one example. Cisco is the only company doing this with custom-built ASICs. Why would we do that? Because it's not easy. It literally cannot be done with off-the-shelf components, or we would have done it. A truly beneficial system really must be able to do the following 4 things. First of all, detect, of course, identify the interferers, examine the duty cycle and the intensity of their energy so that you can, number 2, classify. Identify a specific interferer through the electromagnetic signature and assign a pseudo MAC address to non-Wi-Fi devices so that we can then correlate those things to a single alert and not overwhelm you with a bunch of false alarms. 3, localize. Use the system to triangulate on a specific location, and when things move, we can monitor that. And then number 4, remediate. Fix it, right? Eliminate the interference, usually done by reconfiguring channels. Now, there's 2 really cool things we do in that area. One is the acronym EDRRM, which is Event-Driven Resource Management for reassigning channels. It's a sophisticated algorithm to prevent things like thrashing, which is just rapid or continuous channel changes. Those are bad. And then also we do something called persistent device avoidance. This is for that sporadic stuff, right? To remember intermittent but persistent interference sources and then adjust the channel plan accordingly over time. An air quality score is then given to each location of the wireless network where customer policy, that's your policy, can now dictate what threshold is appropriate before a channel change happens. I mean, interference is a way of life for today's wireless network. Our users have no patience for poor performance. I know I don't. You don't. Clean Air is an invaluable bit of technology you should be leveraging, and it's available on both our indoor and our outdoor product sets. So take that to the bank. Hope that helps.
Navdeep Johar, welcome to TechWise TV Labs, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good to have you here, buddy.
Thank you.
And you brought presents, man. Wow, this is awesome. Now, these are a couple of the new outdoor wireless access points, the new 1550 series, right?
Right.
So we've got the E series here, 1550E, and the C series. And the other 2 that we're not showing here is the H and the I series. So let's kind of go through it and talk a little bit about, let's start off here with E series. What are we looking at here with this new E series product?
So this is our new 11N outdoor access point. It's a new addition to our most powerful carrier-grade Wi-Fi unified infrastructure, right? And the beauty is that this is full-fledged 2x3 MIMO access point, and it has multiple power options, like you can have an AC power uplink, right, or you can power it using a power injector, and also you can use a street light power taps directly from the pole tops to power this on. So very flexible access point with multiple power options. Plus it has, as I said, this is an 11N outdoor access point, so it has these antennas, right, and these are 11N dual band antennas, right. They can operate in 2.4 as well as 5 gigahertz band simultaneously.
Really? So I was wondering how you mentioned MIMO.
Right.
I'm like, MIMO, I only see 3 antennas here. I'm like, MIMO is usually even number, but that's why these are dual band.
Right. So you know, just to elaborate a little bit on this, you know, we are very much mature into the 11N market, right?
Definitely.
And so this, when we came out with this access point, this contains all the flavors of 11N technology. It is MIMO. It is 2x3 MIMO. That's why you see 3 access points. 2 are transmitters and 3 are receivers, right? And at the same time, you know, we have 2 spatial streams which we are transmitting out of it, right? And then we have beamforming, which is beneficial in the downlink direction.
Definitely.
And then when you talk about the uplink, we have maximum ratio combining, right, which gives a very high receiver sensitivity for these access points, right? Perfect. So you will see that all 3 flavors are blended together into 11N. We have a lot of other access points in the market, right? They say that they are 11N, but when you go a little bit deep, they don't have all the wings of 11N technology.
Right, that's very, very true.
Yeah.
That's very true. Now, this unit's pretty darn heavy. Is there a battery backup in here?
Yes, definitely. We can have a battery backup on this access point for 2 hours, right?
Oh, okay.
And the battery runtime really depends upon the PoE output which we have, and this PoE output can really be used to hang the cameras right here, right here, yeah.
Oh, okay.
This can be really used to hang the cameras directly from this access point. So if the PoE out is being used, the battery runtime is around 1.5 hours. Otherwise, it's 2 hours, right?
Wow.
It's a pretty decent time for the run.
So let me ask you, as we're playing out an outdoor design, it's a little bit different, obviously, than an indoor design. Let's take it a step at a time. What kind of gain am I getting out of these antennas?
So as I said, these are dual band antennas. So when we go into 2.4 gigahertz, we get a gain of almost 4 dBi. In 5 gigahertz, we get a gain of 7 dBi. It's a very powerful antenna, actually. 7 dBi is a very powerful gain.
That's a lot of juice there.
Yeah, that's right.
What's our transmitted power then?
It's 28 dBm. So which gives you a very strong ARP power, right?
Yeah, that's really nice.
And this increases the downlink budget, but in the uplink budget we have MRC, as I said, that's maximum ratio combining, which gets added to the receiver sensitivity. So the downlink budget and uplink budget is almost balanced, which gives us a very robust coverage. Cool. and very high throughput on the target areas.
And I've got mesh backhaul supported pretty much on all the 1550s, right?
Yeah, so this is a very important aspect which you have brought in. This is an access point which not only provides the client access, but also these access points can mesh with each other on the backhaul.
That's nice.
Right, so you can create these mesh clusters to cover maybe the whole cities, and then those mesh clusters can talk on the backhaul, right?
Very
at the same time.
I can, since we're doing the full package, then I can secure my backhaul with like 11i.
That's right.
And then all my client stuff, I can actually make it a little more open with just N.
Yes.
Forbid B, of course, because we don't want to actually trash out the network for everybody else. Okay, so this is very cool. Let me talk to you about this C, which is the cable access point. This one actually has a cable modem built into it, right?
Yes, and it's a DOCSIS 3.0 cable modem. It's not a simple cable modem. It's a very powerful cable modem which gives you 8 downstreams and 4 upstreams.
Is it Eurodoxis as well?
It's a Eurodoxis as well.
Oh,
right?
very cool.
So we are going to launch this product for the whole world, right? So we are very careful that when we launch the product, it is applicable for all the theaters. That's why we have incorporated DOCSIS 3.0 as well as Eurodoxis, both inside it.
Very cool. And so the antennas are integrated in here?
Yeah, this is this AP has an inbuilt antennas as compared to this access point, and you will also see the size of this access point is even lesser than this.
Oh, it is.
This is a half an inch less than this, and this is lighter as you were pulling. This is much lighter than this access point because we have inbuilt cable modem, but we do not have battery backup in this because battery backup is not required. This access point is directly powered with the cable strand, which can directly go into this access point,
cable,
right?
Yeah.
And you can hang these APs directly on the cable strands, right? And so battery backup is not required in this, right? So, but that's why we have changed some power circuitry into it. We have brought the size down so that it suits the cable industry, right? So
the finish on this makes me think it could probably be painted too. Can you paint this one?
Yes.
Integrated antennas?
Yes, we have a lot of requirements where these access points, they catch a lot of attractions, right? And
exactly.
we want to camouflage them, and so anybody can paint it as per the surroundings. And this is a paintable chassis, right?
That's very cool. That's very cool. Now, one of the things I'm noticing on this thing is a little bit different. Why is there any special reason why these screws are different than any of these other ones? Because they definitely stand out more.
Yeah, very good question actually. So when we hang these APs on the cable strands, we are making sure that our customers need not have to open the box from here and flip it up, because if it's a bad weather, moisture can go inside when they're doing it. So we have provided these 2 small, very intelligent type of arrangements, right? One is to adjust the stinger screw. There's a cable strand which is coming directly into the AP. So we can open this and adjust the fuse and balance the signal, right?
Sure.
And the second one is for the minor adjustment for the stringer connector, right? So we don't have to open that. Even to do the console access into this AP, although it's a unified architecture, we believe in zero touch installation, right?
Yeah, right.
But certainly if you want to troubleshoot, you don't have to open the box. We have a console port right here, right? On this. So you can just open it and just
That is very cool.
Thank
That
you.
is very cool. One thing I do like too is I need to put this thing down because even though it's lighter than this one, it's still pretty darn heavy. So it's certainly well built, man. You also have the LED lights on here too. Are these pretty visible from the ground?
Yes, that's the main consideration which we have kept in mind. If you see our competitor products, the LEDs are not visible from the ground.
That's the biggest problem.
So we are making sure that LEDs are bright, and plus they also carry a lot of meaning when they blink, right?
Yeah.
So, but just just reading our documentation and just seeing the LEDs, you can very well see what's going on inside the AP. Whether it's trying to find an uplink, whether it's trying to find a better parent in the uplink, because these APs can also mesh with each other. So a lot of troubleshooting can be done by just simply looking at the LEDs.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Now, real quickly, the two products that we don't have on set here. We got the H series, which is for the hazardous materials, right?
Right.
And that's been hazmat certified, and it's got all the certifications and stuff, so you can put it in like mining shafts or inside in type of where I'm handling fuel handling, that type of stuff. It is certified for that then.
Yes, yes.
And then I also have the I. What's the I? That's the one I really don't know about.
So I is similar looking as our C model. It doesn't have a cable modem inbuilt into it.
Okay.
It's like a, so you can say, small baby of this. This is a full-fledged 1552 we have, but that I model will have inbuilt antenna similar to C model, right? And it will not have any battery backup again, right?
Okay.
And it will only have PoE uplink. Ethernet uplink, right?
I see.
It will not have any other option like fiber uplink. Like this is a full-fledged model. It has a fiber uplink. It has Ethernet uplink, right? And so that model will be with the inbuilt antenna, but very limited uplink, only with one type of uplink required,
I see.
right?
Okay.
So,
Nice for hotspotting, for campuses, that type of stuff. That's really cool.
and that C model can be used as maps, right? Like these APs can be used as wraps, and those can be maps. So wrap and maps are the radio rolls which can be configured on these APs so that they can mesh with each other, right?
Wow.
Right, so this
Well,
is
that's
pretty
sweet,
cool
man.
technology. Yeah.
Well, Navdeep, I appreciate you coming on the show, man. This is really awesome stuff and great technology, man. Your team did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Hey, Jimmy Ray, what would you say is the top training and education event for IT and communications professionals?
Why, that can't be anything other than Cisco Live, Rob.
That's right, Jimmy Ray. They have hundreds of technical sessions addressing all Cisco products, ranging from introductory courses to the deep dive advanced stuff.
Don't you know it, Rob, but that ain't even my favorite part.
What's your favorite part of Cisco Live, Jimmy Ray?
The geeks, Rob. There's no better place to talk shop with the Cisco experts, engineers, including Meet the Engineer and the Technical Solutions Club.
Ah, the great whiteboard farm. Great point, Jimmy Ray. Cisco Live is the place for advanced technical training opportunities, including hands-on labs and seminars.
I can't wait to the next one, my friend.
Ah, yeah, soon. You know what they say?
What's that?
Cisco Live. It's technology you can use.
From geeks you could trust?
Does sound kind of familiar.
Yeah.
Feedback loop.
Oh, cool. Hey, we got a video question this time.
Hey!
Hey, TechWise TV, this is Bill in Dallas. What's the real deal with switch lobe antennas? I hear a lot of confusing things. I could really use some guidance.
So, switch lobe antennas.
Let's start the show over again.
This feels, this feels on one hand basic, but you're like, well, what is he leaving out? They feel like there's more to that question there.
Yeah, I agree.
So switch lobe antennas are not a new situation necessarily to deal with.
You're right.
But the protocols that seem to be in wide use now, they could find themselves in a switch lobe antenna environment. And is that even proper? Is that something someone needs to watch out for? Specifically, help me understand when it comes to 802.11n and the fact that you've got multiple protocols and multiple wavelengths that you're dealing with as well.
Yeah.
Is there a mismatch that needs to be watched out for there?
Yeah, like the MIMO side of the house and stuff.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah, here's the thing. Switch lobe antennas are good for what they do. I mean, they focus on a single strong beam. They're picking up. The breaking point of any wireless system is going to be how I'm getting my information, my reflectivity back from my client, not what I'm giving off the AP. I've got control of that. But what I'm getting back from my client, that's where I'm really that's where the meat and taters really hit any good design, because my client cards are going to be different. Everybody's going to respond a little differently. Clients are moving around. It's the whole mobility factor that'll really make and break a wireless system. And switch lobe is good for focusing on that strong beam if I'm in a line of sight. If I can see my access point and I can track it and I can move around and kind of be, electronically tethered to it, then switch lobe is going to be good because I have no obstructions. I have nothing in my Fresnel zone, if you will, and I can actually, that's going to work really good. It works great in G, works great in B, A.
What I'm hearing is it sounds like they're well designed for a very fixed environment in a set of conditions that everybody would love to have, but that's really not the reality in which most access points or how things are used today.
Yeah,
right?
so then we bring in 11N. And now we decide to change the wires. We decide to stop serving B clients because B clients bring the rest of the network down.
Right.
So we turn B off. And so we're saying, okay, we're using A on the backhaul, G and N to serve up. And most people are not even doing G. It's like you do N or you don't do anything.
Right.
And I support that. I think that's a good decision. But it really depends on your environment. The problem is when I get offline of sight or NLOS, near line of sight. If I get in an environment where I got a lot of multipathing, you'd have multipathing like crazy in this room. Look at all the metal, all the reflectivity in here. That wireless signal is going to bounce all over the place.
And is this why? Because the decisions being made in a MIMO environment are going to really kind of get false signals in terms of...
Yeah, so see, that's where it goes, right? So in a MIMO environment, I've got, let's say, like some of the access points we do, they're 3x2s. So if I've got that set up, where I'm transmitting off of 2, receiving off of 1, then as I'm picking up that signal, then I'm actually picking if it was switch lobe, I'd be picking up the stronger signal, and my other stuff would be rejected or actually being processed as a side lobe, and I'd be losing some of that bandwidth and performance I have, and it just doesn't work good. No, it's not what you want in a multipath or non-line of sight type of environment.
So here's where I struggle, though, because what's the reality? Because you're talking about updated protocols running in an old physical antenna environment. I mean, does that really occur? Is that something someone needs to watch out for?
Well, yeah, sadly it does, because switch lobe antennas are the cheapest to manufacture. You can really design these really quick, and a lot of manufacturers are going to just up the power ratio. So that I've got a higher dB out.
Take it to 11, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They'll crank that up to overcome any of those near line of sight issues. They'll come up with some very big saturation numbers, like okay, in this site survey you have to put in 12 access points, where if you actually had the right antenna, you may have to only put like 8 or 6.
That's bad on so many levels.
Well, especially when you don't have as many channels overlapping and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that gets to be a real issue here. Plus, I'll be quite honest with you, since a lot of these switch lobe antennas are designed very cheap, they're designed very cheap. Some of the components in those, when you dissect these, are pretty low end and low grade. So if I'm designing an N-based network that I know I'm going to have multipath issues, that I know I'm not going to be line of sight, the first thing I ask any vendor, I don't care who it is this a switch lobe antenna?
How obvious is it? Can you tell this kind of thing?
Not unless you actually look at the antenna usually, and you're really good with antenna theory. Most people look at antennas and they make sure the impedance matches and they see what kind of gain they're getting out of it, and that's about it. You need to ask the type. It's a beamforming antenna. It's a 2x2. What type of antenna do I have that I'm connecting up to this, so you know what your best signal strength is. Not every antenna works for every access. The antenna is the make or break point of any type of great design. It's like having a 57 Corvette and then and driving around all primered up, instead of painting a nice red with a cove white. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the same car, color makes all the difference. Wireless access unit, same stuff. The antenna makes all the difference.
I was going to go more Chevelle, but I'll stay with you on that.
Oh, Chevelle, come on.
So for anyone that's trying to make a decision, hopefully most of our customers are working with specialized wireless partners, because we've got quite a few that know this stuff. But is that a good checkbox to also kind of double check the partner? Just to make sure these kind of things are done, because it sounds like it could make a big difference in a cost perspective as well.
It really does. And so I think a lot of times when you're looking at designing out a network, be careful. We all got to work on cost, right? I mean, it's all, it's just kind of how it is, you know? Yeah. But compare apples to apples. Don't look at an access point and say they both support N, and they're both outdoor rated, they're NEMA 4 rated, so this must be fine. No, man, you could be setting yourself up for failure before you ever apply a single amp of current to that thing, just because the antennas are not designed for your use out there. There's a lot of stuff that's switch lobe out there today, and I'm afraid that that it's causing more problems, or it's more costs, because I have to have more APs to get the coverage that I need to reduce my multipathing and my line of sight type of issues.
I wouldn't have thought. That's a good question.
Yeah, it really does make a big difference. It really does.
Well, very good. Well, Bill, thanks so much for sending that one in. For the rest of you, come on, send them in.
Best practices are always a good thing to share, and we've done a lot of that on TechWise, covering wireless security best practices. But the guys here decided to do something completely different this time and explore wireless security best practices for the outdoors.
So consider this challenge. You had said this show needed a segment on wireless security.
Right.
That wasn't the final thing you said.
Right.
I'm like, oh, all right, but we've, as we talked about, that's been done a lot in this show and, of course, elsewhere. Mm-hmm. But specifically, you said, no, let's do it. Let's carve all the stuff out. It can be assumptive about the fact that wireless security is not a hard topic to find good information around.
True.
But wireless outdoor security may deserve a little bit of a, what's that different niche? Yeah. And so I was going through, you can see on the notes, so the notion of encrypting data, encrypting users, mutual authentication back and forth with some of the modern ways in which that is done now, or hopefully is done when we talk about it. But where do you first go when it comes to defining what the difference is? Is it simply about the fact that they're outdoors and thus they got to be tougher? It's got to be more than that, right?
There is definitely, a lot of people will look at outdoor wireless access points, and the first thing they'll ask is, what's the NEMA rating? Is this NEMA rated? And how cold can I get it? How hot can I get it? That's a piece of it. That's a part of it. And that does really matter. I mean, putting an access point down here in San Jose versus putting an access point in Milwaukee, the weather conditions are completely different. I've noticed that. That is a part of it. But the bigger piece of it is you look at these things. Look at them. I mean, they stick out. Yeah. And so if I'm going to try and hide my access points inside of a building like this one, and so if someone has to either get access in, or they have to sit out in the parking lot and do some type of electronic surveillance to try and map out what my internal structure is. Outside, these stand out. You can see these.
And it's got to stand on its own.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now, to be fair, these are also designed, as was said earlier, to be painted and kind of integrated into the environment.
Yeah.
But how does it play? And you were telling me a story in Chicago that I found interesting, because I didn't realize it was such a big issue. Because when he talked about the fact that you could paint them, I'm like, in Chicago, they must be painting targets on them.
Yeah, because so a lot of people think that they'll see these out there, and they've got triangulation variances with them that can pick up where a gunfire is. And they can let you know where gunfire certainly is, exactly. And so a lot of people will, like in the old days before they would shoot somebody or go do a drive-by, so they'd shoot out all the street lights. And now one of the big things they're doing is they're finding these access points, and they're shooting out the access points, so they can't triangulate any longer.
So there is some security through obscurity when it comes to locating these, not just from a consideration of access to the devices that need access for communication, but also for the fact that you don't want to see them because it's could potentially be an issue. People wanting to actually go take them down. Okay.
Right. And people, and of course, people stealing them. Trying to sell them off. Just trying to destroy them just for the sake of being mean about it. And stuff. So there's a part of that. I think that when it comes to the security piece of it, if we take a look at the slide here and stuff, if I've got my access point and it's mounted up on a power pole and stuff, and I'm trying to be a good municipal citizen, and I've got, I'm delivering out wireless access, to folks down here and stuff, and everybody's happy. They're loving it. They can access their pages.
As a service.
Yeah, as a service.
So outdoor wireless as a service.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of municipalities that do that, and it's very successful. But they also, what they're doing is they're serving license frequencies of 4.9 gig. Now that's a license freak. This here is all unlicensed bands here. So one thing I want to do is I want to make sure that if I'm serving that up on the same AP, that I've got the ability to be honest with you, to actually shut this off, so that I can actually dedicate that unit so that my public service has access in time of a crisis.
It's like an on-demand QoS type of change, I mean, theoretically.
Theoretically, yeah, you're absolutely right. So now if I've got this access point, and now I'm sitting out here and I've got a building, sitting here and it's on fire, the last thing I want to do is I don't want people updating their Twitter accounts and saying, hey, this building's on fire in 140 characters or less. What I really want to happen is when my fire team goes inside, that they can transmit video of what's going back on, and it actually hits the crowd down here, the emergency response team, and they can say, hey man, we need to fight this fire, or there's some explosive chemicals in there you need to get out, because that's a Class D type of fire or whatever, that they can see that through video on their helmets.
So it's probably not Twitter, right? Because Twitter's 140 characters is almost nothing from a bandwidth perspective. But if someone was streaming something on their iPhone or some other device like this, going, dude, you wouldn't believe I'm in this fire or whatever, and then these guys who want to use video, because it's all about rich media, to harden the target, as you're saying, and increase the intelligence around it so that we can respond more effectively, bad news, right?
Absolutely. I don't want any. I've got one CPU in here. Let's just face it, man. I've got a CPU in here, I've got memory. It's dedicated to serving up. The one thing I want to do in emergency response, I want to dedicate that process to handling emergency response.
So it's always a priority channels. Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so even though they're on different wavelengths, that's not much of an issue.
No.
So we assume all the same authentication. I'm curious about, because these devices are also, now it's funny because they're certainly not light.
Yeah.
But they fall under this controller-based architecture, right?
Right.
So if you're talking about physical access to these things, and if someone was trying to get key information to figure out how to unencrypt the data and set up a man in the middle or something like that, is there any data stored on these type of things that would be of benefit to anybody?
That's a really good question, Rob, and the answer is no. And one of the nicer, very well thought out features, you can see these units are fairly sealed. And one of the nicer, well thought out features on this product is that you can't send any configuration changes over the air to them. You have to send them from the controller.
Okay.
And so what a lot of places do is that they'll run these out and they've got fiber running to them because you're spanning some just humongous distances, So they'll run fibers usually a lot of times through traffic light poles or light poles, wherever the case may be, and you're running that fiber infrastructure down to connect these in, and any changes I make are made at the controller and distributed out. So if I've got a hacker sitting on the street and he's trying to break in this access point, all he's doing is giving me time to find him doing an illegal act, and we can catch him.
But you're talking about when they're wired kind of in a physical act, so you got to protect the physical access medium from that perspective. In other words, configuration information is not exchanged wirelessly over the backhaul or even on boot up, or?
Well, on boot up you actually will pull the base level config to get the unit set up, of course.
Part of the CapWAP protocol,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. But if you break in there, you can't break into it. It will only serve. It will not allow you into that management plane. Is what we've done. We actually have a physical separation on that management plane side.
Okay, very interesting.
Which make them very secure. Trying to break into a building physically here, a building that's in Milwaukee, and I'm trying to break into it in San Jose, my arms are just not long enough.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm really doing here. I'm separating out my management planes from my data planes.
And that's the natural benefit of the architecture.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
What are the kind of things that we need to be aware of here?
I think that another big piece of this picture that makes wireless different outdoor than what it does indoor is the fact that most of these APs, to be very powerful, is we want to connect them together. We want to mesh them up, right?
Oh, so kind of the backhaul type of thing?
Exactly.
Okay.
So that if I've got my access points here, I want them to talk to each other so that they can serve up and they can actually mesh this information out. Now, obviously, that is a very, very critical link for no matter who's deploying these things, because I want to make sure that access is seamless, so that if I've got somebody in a train, or a car, or whatever,
high-speed roaming kind of issue.
Exactly, and that person is mobile. That actually looks like a tennis shoe backwards. That person is mobile. That their information will follow them, kind of as they go down in our little area of autonomous control. So what I do is that backhaul, if you will, is actually secured up, and what we're doing is we actually secure that with
11i.
Exactly, 11i.
So that's AES encryption.
Yeah, exactly. You're right on target. Yeah, so we're using actually AES to actually secure this backhaul and lock that package down so that it really does have a really nice way to mesh these units together to ensure that they're getting reliable information back and forth to each other, and we're trading that information. This is a great way to add that extra layer of security for sure.
Does this kind of cover it? Because what I'm thinking, what's jumping out at me here is that, okay, so first of all, we went in assumptive in the fact that your normal indoor wireless security, all those rules really do still apply. You're certainly not doing WEP level security on this.
No.
Now, depending on the type of devices you're connecting to, you might need to get crafty with, some of your VLAN specific information and how you're using SSIDs for remote services, whether you're broadcasting that information or not. All that stuff still plays in here. And then the outdoor stuff, to me, still sounds like it's part and parcel. You know, wireless is always about be careful how you set these up, because upon that initial setup, everybody always kind of goes default routes, and they just don't realize how much they're exposing. Right. These things, based on the natural architecture, based on the way they're set up to communicate and things like this, a lot of that's kind of been thought through, so you don't have to actively...
So true.
I don't want to say they're idiot-proof, because nothing is. And usually the people that are going to put up this kind of system and are designing that architecturally are probably know what they're doing, or let's hope they're working with a very good partner who's doing it right, because they know it's a very serious type of setup. So many services.
That's very true. A lot of folks are a lot of folks are doing this. Have really, it's not their first time they've done it before. They really thought it out really well, and so the biggest piece that folks want to know, engineers are doing this. They just want to know, what do you support? You know, yes, we support the full end package.
I was just gonna. That was where I wondered. Okay, so when with that end package comes a lot of these things we're talking about, such as 802.11i.
Absolutely, spatial streaming. MIMO, all that stuff. I mean, we support all these really nice things you can do. Honestly, good. You see other products out there with N, and they'll say they're doing N, but they don't do all of the N stuff. They're just doing basically the physical layer, stuff down to the PHY. They're not actually adding all the extra little cool, nice, features to it. Stuff like, I in there as well.
And actually, you remind me of something as well, something kind of Cisco specific, but these also support Clean Air, Cisco Client Leak, and some things of this nature, so that from an interference or noise perspective, which you just inherently would assume is more dynamic outdoors and more things that are going to potentially interfere with this, so you do have that built-in spectrum analysis, do you not?
I really appreciate you saying that, because I had NavDeep on, and we were talking about how great these APs are and all this stuff, and the one thing I forgot to ask about was Clean Air, and that is it's a favorite topic of mine. It's a very important feature in here, and you're right.
He's going to be kicking himself for not bringing it up.
So you're right. That is a huge differentiator between this AP and anybody else is out on the market today, is a Clean Air package. You brought up the most important point of this entire discussion, on the show, is that Clean Air is integrated in these products. And man, dude,
I is there anything else?
I bow to you.
Is there, we got that right. Is there anything else we need to know about these that would be critical from the outdoor perspective? Okay, so take advantage of them. It's amazing, as we dug into this, how many different services these things support simultaneously. Not to mention, I think Sylvia covered this up at the top with Ray, but also the fact that they're doing 3G and offload, using Wi-Fi to offload pressure from a data perspective, that everybody's grappling with on cell phones, and man, that's going to be valuable as well.
Yep.
Okay, well, very good. I feel more secure already. No secret on this show, we love our friends at the Cisco Learning Network. Many of you have built your career around your Cisco knowledge and the ability to keep challenging yourself with growth in your certifications. Now, one reason these certs are so valuable is that they require you to have a hands-on level knowledge. That's all good for those of us with access to a network you can play with. If you're tired of your day job, you can certainly play on the production network, but they're not going to keep you around long, and so proceed with caution, right? But great news for the more sane among us. This just in, Cisco Learning Labs, virtual Cisco iOS practice labs for routing and switching. Now you can virtually access and implement routing and layer 2 core switching lab configurations from the convenience of your PC. The barrier of trying to set up a home lab or begging for access to a friend's lab, gone. This is the hassle-free solution for a cost-effective and authentic lab experience. I mean, think about it. You can configure labs in the route and core switch environment. No downtime for equipment resets. Multiple labs available in all bundles, and these are all available for CCNA, CCIP, and CCNP certifications. So where to get them? Exclusively at the Cisco Learning Network store. Check them out, cisco.com/go/learninglabs. Your career will thank you. If I were to tell you that Jimmy Ray was going to cover technology from 1938 that promised to solve problems for you here in 2011, you'd say he's crazy. And you'd be right, but not about this. Masterclass Antenna Engineering, that's next.
Hey folks, one of the things about antennas that have always really kind of confused me just a little bit is impedance. Impedance is a really tricky subject when it comes to looking at antennas, but it's really one of the more important ones. Now, antenna design, antenna theory is just full of variables. I mean, it's definitely, you can get a PhD exclusively focused in antenna design, so there's a whole lot that goes into it. But we're going to focus on, I think, one of the more basic pieces, and that's impedance and impedance mismatching, how we're connecting antennas to lines and then to receivers. And one of the best ways to visualize that, in my opinion, is with a good old Smith chart. that we have up here. Now this is what's called an eminent Smith chart, and it's kind of more of the common one used today. The Smith chart was invented back around like in the 30s, like 1939, 1940 time frame, by a dude named Philip Smith, and he said, "Man, I like this so much, I want to name it after myself." But the guy really enjoyed looking at math visually, and so what he did is he came up with this concept of concentric circles and having a positive side, a negative side, an imaginary side, and a real side to really determine how to visualize various antenna components. Now, there's a lot of stuff that we can do with this, so we're going to take one basic, simple example, hopefully get you started on Smith charts, and then you'll really dig into it. Now, understanding this stuff will really up your geek factor to the max. You'll see a lot of the old school guys that are really into antenna engineering. When you ask them a question about impedance or anything, they'll look up in the sky because they're visually picturing out their own little mental Smith chart. Now, we've got away from this a little bit, unfortunately, with computers and MathCAD and stuff like this, but it's still really no substitute for really understanding how it really works on a real scale. So let's take a look at what we do. Let's say that I've got a common circuit here, and I've got my my standard antenna or my receiver here, so that would be my Z in, my impedance in. That's going to come across. This is my line or my length. Now, the length on here, when I'm talking about length, I'm actually talking about wavelength. We're not really wavelength, but the length it takes for a steady state, a sinusoidal waveform, to actually make a complete circuit, right? For it to do this, to go up, back down, and come up again. That's actually a complete state. Now, that's what I'm referring to in length. If you're looking at something like, I don't know, 60 hertz, 60 hertz length is about 3,100 miles. So that's definitely very low frequency stuff. If you're looking at like 2 gigabits, your length is about, I think it's about 0.75 centimeters. It's really, really tiny. So that's what we're talking about with length. What is our wavelength, not our wavelength, but our sinusoidal waveform length to form all the way out. Now we have our load over here. We'll represent that with just a squiggly load line. That will be our Z load, ZL. And we want to actually find, of course we got our Z naught too, we'll have to know that. And we want to find, we got our antenna, this is our antenna side, and we say, okay, well we got our equations here, we want to know if we compare this antenna with that actual access point over here, and what are the right characteristics for it. Okay, so we get our antenna, we break it down, and the one thing we know is we say, okay, well our Z characteristic, our impedance characteristic of that is 100 over 50, and then we're going to add that to our normalization values, 100 over 50 ohms, right? That's our J values, if you will. When we add those together, run that equation, we get 2 plus J2. Now, this is our first step in actually plotting this out on the equation. All we did, we took what our impedance character, what's stamped on the antenna right up here, and we actually added these in so we could get a nominal value that we could plot on this chart. So we go across on our Smith chart. This is the center. This is our 50 ohm load here. Everything kind of references itself from the center. We've got 2 here, so we do a plot of 2. Right there is 2. Bring that on down. And then we find our other plot of 2, and then that comes over here. Boom. Now there's our intersection, is right about here. Now this is actually showing what our ZL, our load factor is. This is 2, which is what we want. Now our next step, what we're going to figure out is really what our wavelength, our sinusoidal wavelength, like over here, what this is actually going to be on this circuit. Now we know that because we're using, let's say in this example, 4 gigabits. On 4 gigabits, we're looking at an L factor of about 0.2 lambda. To add that in. So we'll add 0.2 on that scale by actually crossing that through here, bringing it up, and that takes us right out to about 0.21 on our scale. So 0.21 at our intersection, we plotted from the center, because this is actually our consistent. This is where we normalize and use the 50 ohms. A lot of times when we're doing antennas, and we got to terminate them. Our termination load is always 50 ohms, because a long time ago, that was back in the 30s too, they decided that the way coax lines were built, that 50 ohms was the best value to use so you have minimal loss and maximum gain on any type of power on a circuit. So this was set a long, long time ago. So at the center, our normalization is 50 ohms. We do that. We plot that straight through. We know our wavelength here is 0.2 lambda, and we're going to try to figure what this is to connect to our antenna. This is a lot of times what's called the generator, if you look at materials. So though some materials are actually call this towards the generator, or TWG. To find the TWG, we actually look again on the Smith chart, and we look, there's a lot of little indicators on this outside wheel that tell which way you calculate stuff. Now what we're looking for is this one right here. It says wavelengths towards the generator. That means if we're figuring something out to plug into the generator, or to the access point, we want to go this way clockwise around the wheel to figure that out. So up here I've got 0.21. I know that my wavelength value for my length up here is 0.2. So now all I'm really doing is simply taking 0.2 plus 0.21. Adding those out, I walk around the wheel. Here's 0.33, 37, 394, 41. Right there's my plot point. And now what I want to do is draw a line and connect that straight through to here. Now that plot point is showing me what should be my impedance input on this device. So now I can take 0.2 and now I plotted 0.2 up here. Remember, like we did right on this side here, we plotted 0.2 going this direction. So now we're going to plot 0.2 basically going negative. So we'll come down to here, be about right there, and then you take that number. That's actually, this is my arc. I'm actually going to space that out a little bit. This is my rotate. I'm rotating towards the negative to figure this out, because I'm actually going kind of opposite direction for what I want my match to be. So this is my rotate variable. Now I take my rotate variable and I bring that up to the center line. That takes me about, bring it right up here, at about 0.35 is about where I should be on that wheel. That's right, isn't it? Let me see, up, round, yeah, there we go. So 0.35 is my, my next variable here, or what it really amounts to as a piece of my Zn. This is not actually, this is where my Zn starts, which is where my impedance input starts, but there's a couple factors you got to calculate in here. Zn is actually what's known as my real number. Now, the part that really confuses folks on Smith charts is there's what's called real and imaginary numbers. Real numbers are simply numbers that are actually burning up power. The power that's actually being generated and shot out the antenna, that's actually called a real number. There's also another set of numbers called imaginary numbers, and imaginary numbers are where people kind of get freaked out a little bit, because imaginary numbers are the numbers that are stored at the antenna array itself. It's the power that is kind of stored there. It's kind of left over from this unit, and that's where we really get bit on the impedance side, is when it comes to the imaginary numbers. Now, imaginary numbers, this is where it makes Smith charts are just so awesome, because we can really plot this out and we can see this. Okay, my real number is 0.35 on here, so now I want to plot out my imaginary number, and my imaginary number is just simply, I just go down here and follow the next arc down. That next arc down takes me to 0.6. So now I take 0.6, that's my J number, that's a negative number, right, because I'm below this line. This is my line of resistance right here. This line of resistance never changes in a frequency. This is a real important thing on a Smith chart. You're seeing all these crazy circles running all over the place because you're really seeing the effect that frequency has on impedance and capacitance inside of an antenna. But resistance never changes. Resistance does not respond to frequencies, whether I'm 60 gigs, or 60 hertz, or 2 gigabits, my resistance stays the same. And that variable is actually what makes the whole Smith chart work. So now I plot this down to 0.6. These are my negative going numbers, my negative side. My J value is 0.6. So now these are just basically Smith chart numbers. These are not actually referenced out in ohms yet. So now I got to actually convert these. And to convert these out, I take my Z output number, my Z naught, multiply it times that. That should actually reference me out to 17.5 with a J number of about 30 ohms, and that's the number I'm actually matching up to get this to work. I know it kind of looks a little bit complicated, but it's really not. Smith charts, they just take a little bit of time to work with, and you can do everything with these things, and they totally maximize your geek value. But the thing that I like about them the best is that I can plot changes over time, and I can see what type of impact that is. If, for example, that my value up here changes, my antenna load changes, I say, oh, you know what? I actually got an antenna that now has a value of 3. I can plot that down here, and I'm just actually bumping everything down a notch, and I can see how this stuff interrelates. There's software programs that tie this stuff in, and you can move these values, and you can see everything is chained together, and it moves all over these charts, and they just really give us an incredible, nice visual way to see what's going on anytime we make any change to an electronic component. Smith charts are great. One of my favorite sites to reference this is a site called antennatheory.com. The guy actually has a nice tutorial on there, different than the one I showed you. He actually walks you through some different paces, which is good. But these are just endless use, and it's kind of an old art and very, very cool. So I hope you get a lot of use out of it.
Okay, couple things to remember here. MSAP. This is Cisco technology to enable more services and better customer intimacy in next-generation hotspots. Next, clean air for outdoors. Hey, there's no reason not to expect the same great service, free of interference, both inside and outside. And that's what Portless Networks is all about, seamless connections regardless of location or device. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed the show and found it valuable. The entire team here appreciates your ideas and your feedback, so keep it coming. As always, send us an email, techwisetv@cisco.com. In fact, you can find all of our shows at techwisetv.com, and that includes our podcast, Facebook, Twitter link, and of course, the blog. Well, that does it for this show. On behalf of Jimmy, Ray, Rob, and all of us at TechWise TV, thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
That looks like a camera, doesn't it? Where's the lens in that thing? All I see is pictures there. Oh yeah, how you read through those words?